our clients in this time have been fucking amazing. Like, they've sent food to us. They've sent like macaroons. They've bought memberships for dogs that haven't been born yet, you know?
Yeah, wow.
Like, it's like they've continued to pay membership, because we've got the way that our structure is we have a pay as you go where you just pay on the day, or you can sign up for a membership, and we've got a 12-month membership or a lifetime of your dog membership, right? So they're the sort of three options that we have. People are paying for memberships when they can't train. Like, we haven't trained since March, and I'm like, hey, do you guys want to put this on hold? And they're like, nah, we're good. Like, we'll just keep paying. Like, I'm working.
Awesome.
Like, it's just,
that's a good testament to you guys, man, and where your heart and soul is at.
Puts your faith in people, eh?
Yeah, and it's really touching. It's very humbling, but
it's also a testament to the community that you've built and the work that you've done. You know, that wouldn't just happen like overnight.
No.
Welcome back, another episode of Life with Your Dog. We have a guest today, Brent. Good to have you on. How are you, brother?
I'm really good, Panos, and nice to meet you too, Luke.
That's it,
yeah, I'm good, man. Kicking it down in Melbourne, so everything's going all right.
Perfect. You know what? We're feeling you, because in Sydney we're kind of chilling as it's everyday life, and we're just chatting before we started recording. Is that, you know, obviously they've increased or extended the lockdown there, so it's good to see that you got a smile on your face and you're feeling positive, and it's all about perspective, right? I was just saying before, so it's good to hear, bro.
Yeah, it is, mate. Yeah, it's I think everybody in Melbourne's probably very much over it, but you know, for me, it's very interesting. I've had a couple of clients, so I'm back dog grooming, which is really nice now, but I've had a couple of clients. One of my clients, she lost her husband in the middle of all of this, not from COVID, but through health issues, and he was an elderly guy. So she's now living alone. So, yeah, that was terrible for her. And one of my best mates, my jiu-jitsu coach, you know, like, everyone goes through these different types of struggles and that sort of thing. So, you know, my jiu-jitsu gym's been closed for a long time. Everyone's got different perspectives and different stories. So mine isn't more or worse than somebody else's. It's just our perspective and what we see from it, right? So, yes, keep smiling through it, mate. But, you know, we do what we can to make sure that mentally we stay okay and keep going from there.
Love it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into dog training, and yeah, a little bit of your backstory. We'd love to hear it.
The origin story.
The origin story. Cool. So growing up, we did have a dog as a family growing up, just our beautiful little golden retriever dog called Sally. So I spent a lot of time with her, you know, to the point, this is in New Zealand. So there'd be, you know, my camping trip where I'd want to go camping or whatever, I'd want to run away from home, would be me going out and jumping into the kennel with Sally and sleeping out there for the night. So, you know, I had a really nice affiliation with her, and growing up with her, so she was our family dog. She lived for 15 years or something, so which was pretty amazing. And then I came to Australia. I'm a chef by trade, so I was a chef, cooked for a long time. Came to Australia in 1996 from New Zealand, and cooked sort of around Queensland and that sort of thing, and then ended up settling in Noosa for a while. And I got a dog while I was there, and ended up going to a dog obedience school there with my dog. And I really enjoyed that. Like, it was fun. It was a great community. The training was pretty good. So I really enjoyed that. And when I left Queensland and came down to Melbourne, I wanted to do something different. So I had a look around, and I thought, oh, look, there's this thing called the National Dog Trainers Federation course. So I'll do that, and then I'll go off and just become a customs dog handler or something like that. I won't say there was a way that it was sold to me, but what I read into the blurb was, do the course and you'll get a job training dogs. So started the course in January. I don't know what year, I continually forget. My wife Kat and we actually met on the NDTF course as well. So I think you're just starting it, aren't you? Yeah, you're just starting it, aren't you, Luke?
I'm about to do my second block in like 2 weeks. I'll be there back with Glenn. Yeah.
Yeah. So for all you people who are doing it and are single, just be careful. You might meet the love of your life on there, which I definitely did. So that was really cool. And then Kat and I finished the course together, and we didn't have any plans on opening up a dog obedience school. It wasn't what we were thinking at all. But the very, very big training school that was down here, they actually closed their doors. They just wrapped everything up. So there was a big hole in the market. So Kat and I sort of decided, all right, like, let's do it. Like, let's just start running dog training classes. And I think our first class, we had 7 people or something like that. And they were basically people that we just begged to come down, So we started with 7 for our first class, and we've kind of gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger from there. So again, I think it was 2009, I think.
Awesome.
So
about a decade you've been in the game.
Yeah, full time. So
and that's the canine company.
That's the canine company, which is our business. So yeah,
awesome.
We're lucky enough in regards to the group obedience. So we do everything from group obedience to private consults to dog grooming. We run workshops and seminars and all those sorts of things too. We do some online mentoring, which has also been a lot of fun lately. So the first class we had 7, and then now when things are normal, we have 3 different locations. We run Monday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays. And, our Sunday location, which is our bigger location, we could easily have, 80 dogs turning up on a Sunday morning. So
wow,
it's, it's a little bit bigger than when we first started. So, and we've won Australian Dog Trainers of the Year a couple of times, which is really nice little award to get. So it's been good. It's a good journey so far.
Yeah, totally. And you guys got heaps of merch and stuff as well available. And we saw your jumper there. Let's see it again.
Yeah, this one. Well, it's funny. This one, it's called, so They're All Good Dogs, Brent. So a really good mate of mine actually over in the States, Brandon. So he's a bloody good looking guy. We call him Sweaty George Clooney. He's a good, very, very good looking man. Cookie knows him really well also. So when we first went over to America for the IACP conference, Kat and I spent a lot of time with him, and Brandon's just this gorgeous 6'4" bloke with a LA accent, and he's really softly spoken. So we just hung out with him after the seminars, just drinking beers all night. So we really, really hit it off. And he was telling me about this Instagram page called Rate My Dog or Rate Your Dog or something like that. And they score every single dog 12 out of 10 or 13 out of 10 or something like that. And there was this comment, this guy sort of turned around and said, mate, if you're going to have a rating system, if you're going to do it out of 10, it needs to be out of 10, and the guys who were managing this post were basically just like, we can do what we want, like they're all good dogs.
Yeah.
And he kept sitting there and saying, they're all good dogs. And he would just call this person by different names. Yeah. So it just made the bloke angrier and angrier. So Brandon was telling me about this, and he said, they're all good dogs, Brent. So when we went back the following year, he had this hoodie for me and he gave me that. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's sick,
good
man.
bloke.
Tell us a little bit about your own dogs and what you got now.
So I have a little dog. Her name is Zia, also known as Puppy. So she's a 6-year-old Malinois. And we also, there was a dog that a lot of people knew who was our Rottweiler. His name was Zuka. We lost him in February. He didn't quite get to 10 years old, and we kind of lost him pretty quickly, actually. It kind of went downhill really quickly for him, which was a bit of a shame. And now we've got a new Rottweiler puppy who's around about 9 months. Around about 9 months now. And his name is Mr. Smith. And he's just an absolute sweetheart. So
where'd the name come from?
Kat wanted Smith. So kind of along the Will Smith, the actor.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of Will Smith and then a little bit of Smith and Wesson the gun, right? So she's like, you know, hedge my bets. It's just going to be Smith. So when I started to call him, I'll be like, Smith, it just didn't flow. So I added the Mr. part. So Mr. Smith it is now. So he's but he's a gorgeous boy. He's super friendly. Like, he's stupid friendly, you know, like he sees somebody 5, you know, houses down. He's like, oh my God, look, they're walking towards me. They've got to be coming to see me. You know, people on the other side of the road. So he's an absolute sweetheart of a boy. He's a little bit, we call him a little bit slow, you know, like he's kind of a bit lazy, but he's a ripper of a dog. He's really nice. So we're having a lot of fun with him too.
That's awesome, man. So good to hear. Well, so when did you stop the dog training since the lockdown happened? How long ago has that been now?
So we did a class, I think it was about March, something like March or something. We had to stop doing them. You know, at this time that we were flattening the curve, as they say. And then since March, I think I've run 4 classes in total since March. And considering we usually do 3 a week, we've done 4 since March. So
gives you an idea of the impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And the frustrating thing, you know, for us, you know, is we train outside. We were doing social distancing before it was a cool thing, you know, like we don't do dog-to-dog interactions. Like if your dog is on lead, then they're not there to say hello. We're here to train. So, you know, everybody was socially distanced anyway, right? So
yeah, I was going to ask you a little bit, like, you know, what are you guys focusing on in your group classes typically?
So our group classes that we run, Panos, I'll go through like a Sunday, right? So a typical Sunday. So what we do is we have first timers come down. So if it's your first time, you'd come down at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we run like a 15-20 minute brief introduction. And then in that time, we just cover, you know, the health and safety stuff, how to hold the lead. We do a little bit of loose lead walking just to get people moving. And then we cover off a release word.
Like
and then that's about, what was that?
You mean like free, like a release command?
Yeah. And then we kind of sit there and go, all right, guys, like that's the, you know, brief little introduction. Your class will start at 9:30. It's going to be, you know, over in this area. And then at 9:30, we have like our first timers class. We have a beginners class, and then we have a level 1 class. And we've got separate trainers that do all of those different classes, right? So it's not just me and Kat. And then we cover in our first timers, we will do, when they all come back, we'll go through loose lead walking again, because that's one of the things that most people want. Like everybody wants a dog that walks well on a lead, right? So
do you reckon everyone wants that?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Do you think, I don't know, I'm training this Labrador at the moment for the complex skill. It's my friend's lab.
Yes.
And he just pulls like Odin's dogs. Like you know, he's just typical lab, like super friendly, high food drive, you know, but like when he's on the walk, he's obviously never been trained to loose lead walk. As soon as he gets that flat collar on, like he just hits the end of the line as hard as he can, you know. And she being the owner, my friend, she doesn't seem to be bothered at all by it, but I guess, you know, every owner is different, right?
Well, I guess
it'd be interesting
then, right? I guess.
Yeah, well, she's not. I asked her to train him, true. It's a different story.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to get her walking a dog on a loose lead, and she might sit there and go, oh, this is actually quite nice, you know? And I think that's one of the things. Yeah, I think that's one of the things, you know, where you talk about you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
You know, so
it's become normal.
With with our classes, I tend to describe it like we're training pet dogs with sport dog techniques. So we teach, you know, all of our positions in specific ways. And a lot of people sit there and go, why don't you just, you know, teach the dog to sit and then drop? It's like, look, when you're learning something for the first time, why don't we just teach you how to get the dog to drop, you know, backwards in that nice sphinx position? Because if you're learning it for the first time, we can just teach you.
Yeah, and shape it
And
properly.
people sort of, yeah. And then people are like, oh, okay, yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's just as easy to teach somebody correctly than it is to teach them incorrectly, right?
Well, and then over time, you tell the dog to sit, he'll lay down, thinking that you're going to tell him to lay down anyway. So, why separate it later down the track with confusion, and then confusion within the owner, which then means they probably won't even follow through with it because it becomes all too bloody complicated.
And why teach, if you want a dog to lie down, why teach them to sit and then lie down? Exactly. Why do you not just teach them to lie down? Why do two commands, right?
I had a client, he was complaining. He's like, bro, he called me. He's like, he's got a big American Staffy. He's like, I got to the traffic lights. I tell the fucking dog to sit. She sits, she lays down, then she rolls, all from the sit. I'm like, because you've chained it all together. So now
superstitious behavior.
Yeah, we have to then separate it because obviously they put the chains of the link together, and it's hilarious having that sort of problem. But it's because, and it's a good trained dog. Like the dog understood what it needed to do, but it obviously wasn't correct according to the owner.
Yeah, it's what's the definite, like if you could ask the dog what's the definition of sit, it's like, well, I sit and then I lie down and then I roll
and then you
give
me the food, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and the owner's like, what are you doing? Yeah, and then they're like, that looks really cute, here's a piece of food, right? So the dog's like, oh, okay, cool, got it.
Exactly. Well, I guess to even branch from, like, we're talking about loose lead walking and then talking about what Luke just said, is that most people don't think that they need loose lead walking.
You don't, actually, you said it really well, Brent. You don't know what you don't know, right? And that's, I think, like, even like 3 to 6 months ago, like, I was in a position where I didn't know a lot of stuff, and I still don't know a lot of stuff, but, like, what I've come to realize, like, it's all just education. Like, people, like you said, people don't know what they don't know, right? And then once you explain it to them, in a friendly way, they're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. It's like, I don't really want a dog that fucking pulls me down the street and like hurts my shoulder,
Exactly. Well, like, put it this way, is that, all right, so I saw my client yesterday. She got 2 German Shepherds. One's 4, the other is about 8 months old. And we were working on loose lead walking last session. It was about a month ago because every time they saw dogs, they got very excited, lunging, barking, etc. So showing her the technique, and now she goes, hey, look, I walk the dogs. There's still a little bit of excitement, especially from the 8-month-old, which is normal, but heaps better. And then their comment was, but now when now they barged everyone down every time they try to get through the back door because they want to come inside. And inside has become a playground, hasn't become a sanctuary. So then I said, well, then the easiest thing is we put them on a lead and we bring them inside. She messaged me last night going, oh my God, the dogs went to sleep. It was like, because now your loose lead walking technique and the energy of what it represents has now flowed onto other areas of the life. That lead does not mean go spastic. That lead means it's now time
You're under
to
control.
work.
Yeah.
And my philosophy is loose lead walking is giving the dog a job, rather than just giving him structured exercise, which is what it is as well. And I wanted to ask you so Larry Crone says loose lead walking is one of your most important tools that you've got. And what are your thoughts about loose lead walking, I guess more on the philosophy of what walking is rather than just being convenient?
I think, to me, if I can get my dog to do 3 things, like reliably, I can take my dog anywhere I want.
Like
anywhere
the big 3, yeah.
Like walk nicely on the lead, drop when I tell you, and come when I call you. If I can do those 3 things with my dog, people will sit there and go, oh my God, your dog is so amazingly trained. I'm like, he only does 3 things. Like that.
And
but it
now
looks amazing,
you pay me.
Yeah, but it looks really good. But it's all practical. Like they are the life skills, like a lot of people get dogs because they want to go to they want their dog to be part of their life. So the local jazz festival is on, so they want to go down and have a beer and take the dog and sit on the rug and eat some food and that sort of thing. So if you have a dog that can walk nicely on the lead, you have no issues going through crowds. Then you get to your spot and you tell the dog to drop and you walk over and you grab your food and your beer and then you come back. And then if you've got a ball and you want them to go and have a bit of exercise, you can recall them from anything, So those 3 things to me are just practical. They're just life skills with your dog. So the foundation of all of that to me is loose lead walking. The difference between tension on the lead and then no tension on the lead is night and day for a dog anyway. And I feel that when the dog really does understand that proper loose lead walking, they always feel like they're on lead. So you don't have to worry about them being, you know, a little bit lead wise, where they sit there and go, oh, the lead's not on, I'm just going to run away now and you can't do shit about it.
Exactly.
So they kind of understand that, like, oh no, I'm always on lead. So whether it's a loose lead that's, you know, 6 foot long, or it's a flexi lead, which is, you know, 7 meters long, or a piece of rope from Bunnings, which is 25 meters long.
Yeah.
If the feeling is the same, then the dog has the same understanding of, no, I still have to do what I'm told. I still have to come when I'm called, or walk nicely on the lead, even though it's 15 meters long. You know, loose lead walking doesn't have to be for me, the dog being on my left-hand side. Like, it's not a heel position. If my dog's in front of me, it's perfect. I don't care. If he's behind me, it's perfect. I don't care. It's just the lead needs to be loose. So the clearer you are with those sorts of things, I find the easier it is for the dog.
What are your thoughts on the place command, Brent? Do you find that it's just as easy to be able to just put the dog in a drop stay or a down wherever you want it?
It's a really interesting one, Luke. I think our dogs don't have a place command, but they do some things very, very well. So my Malinois, for instance, I could have her, and I do have her off lead at our group classes on a Sunday morning when there's, you know, 80 dogs running around. I'll get her out of the back of the ute. The ute is parked at the ground, the tailgate's down. I'd recall her out of the ute. She comes to me. I'll do a demo with whatever it is that I want her for specifically at that moment. And then I send her back to the ute. You know, she's got options. She could go and chase ducks. She could go and visit people. She could go and see dogs, whatever it is. But when I'm like in the ute, you see her just go, okay. And then she just runs.
Yeah, right.
Usually she takes her reward, so her ball, she has that in her mouth and she just runs back and jumps into the ute. So that is a form of place command, right?
Yes.
So I think place commands are really, really good. I think some people underutilize them, some people overutilize them. For me, I think whatever you're really, really consistent at, the dog will do. Right? Like Panos, you've been to people's houses, I'm sure, and they're like, the dog doesn't do anything, you know, and he pulls on the lead and he knocks at the back door and he barks and he runs around, and, you know, you sit there and go, okay, well, you know, is he allowed up on the couch? And they're like, no, like, he's never allowed on the couch. Well, does he get on the couch? No, never. It's because you're consistent.
Yeah.
Right? So the thing that we're very, very consistent with, the dog generally does all the time. And I find that to be, you know, where people talk about like windows of opportunity for training. You know, it's like, right, I'm going to open this window of training. I think that's a really, really good concept. And people might sit there and say, you know, like, are you ready? Are you ready? And the dog's like, yay, like, let's do stuff, which I think is really good. But if I sit there and go, drop, the dog should still just do it.
Yes.
You know, I don't have to open a recall of training. If I'm really
you can do that
consistent
maybe when you're training, but now when you're going further phases of teaching rather than when you're in training and then proofing, there should just be a command that happens. But yeah, it has to be functional in real life. It can't just be only learn or listen when you're at school. You should be learn the skills so you can do it all the time.
Yeah, that's right. And I think if I'm doing free shaping or something, you know, you can kind of sit there and set a picture where the dog's like, all right, now it's time to work. I can kind of see, you know, Dad's got his treat pouch on and he's got his clicker or whatever it is,
Contextual.
you know. Yeah, so you can make it contextual. And look, I can still sit there with my dog and open up windows of opportunity. I can still sit there and like use a phrase and the dog's like, yay. Like with Zia, I sit there and I'm like, Kat and I will be getting ready to go out, and you know, we'll sit there and we say the word okay, like, you ready to go? Like, all done? She's like, yeah, okay. It's like, woo, the dogs just get super excited about it. Like, that's the word, right? And I never use the word okay in any training.
Okay.
Right. But woo! But it's they become really, really excited because that word is like meant that now they can generally go out, jump in the car, and we're going somewhere. you know.
Interesting.
So they've picked it up, and it's
Good.
nothing that I've taught. It's just one of those things that the dog has learned to understand, right?
Exactly. It's with my dogs. I prefer to use their name as, hey, I'm usually, if I'm saying a name, I'm now about to tell you to do something. And when people say my dog only listens to me when I have the pouch on and with food, and I say to them, your dog should always think you have food or a potential reward if you're giving a command. If I'm
And
saying,
that can only be true if it has been true in the past, right?
That
So
too.
you at some point you have to have the food like concealed, or you can't always be rewarding from the pouch, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but then also you have to be in a position where you haven't got it too.
Yes,
So then they
yeah,
do
yeah.
do it.
Indirect, yeah.
So then when I tell them that you should then, of course, switch it up, put the food in a different contraption, don't have it in the pouch when you are trying to make it a little bit more proofed. But that name should be, I'm about to tell you to do something. And or when I'm giving the command, come down, sit, etc., that should be implying that we're doing something. And what do you think about that?
I tend to just use my dog's name for their attention.
Mm-hmm.
The same as I use anybody's name, you know.
Exactly.
It's just for attention. But I would probably say 95% of the times I give my dog a command, it's just a command, and I never use their name.
Okay.
You know, so if Puppy is on the other side of the field, I'll be like, Puppy, just to get her attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually she'll sort of look at me and I can give her a command. But if we're hanging out and if we're on a walk, or, you know, if I'm down at the rugby club and we're interacting and I'm playing ball or tug or whatever it might be, I'm never using her name. Like, we're there, it's her and I.
You've got her attention already. Why give the name?
Yeah, we're already kind of there. So for me, the name, like a name, is just for attention. And one of the things in our group classes, which I know really annoys, you know, all of our trainers, which is probably part of the reason that I do it, is as I'm demonstrating this in the middle of class, you know, like one of our trainers will be, you know, 40 meters away running class, and I'll just yell out, it's like, Emma! And Emma turns around, she's like, yeah. I'm like, thank you. And they're like, fuck.
Gotcha.
But it's, you know, it just kind of proves that our name is just for attention, and the dog's name should just be for attention, I feel.
And people use the dog's name as a recall, and that's super dangerous, right? Like your dog's run across the road, you want to say Nookie down, not Nookie, and then the dog comes back to you and then get hit by a car.
Yeah.
You know,
it can be it can be dangerous as long as you are aware of what it is that you've taught your dog. I think it's okay.
I say okay as a release command, so your dogs will be fucking heaps confused if I handle your dog. I'll say sit, we're crossing the road. I say okay, and the dog's like, what in the fuck are we doing? And it's like, we're just crossing the road. So again, we talked about perspective right at the beginning of the session. I mean the conversation, and it's exactly that, right? It's what the dog is perceiving, what the dog's feeling in that moment, not about, oh, but this is the universal word. Should I use down or drop? I'm like, I don't care.
Doesn't matter as long as it's the same word.
Exactly, as long as you're consistent, right? What do
you? I've always kind of threatened that my next dog that I get, I'm going to teach my dog sit actually means drop, and then drop actually means sit, just to prove that the words don't matter.
Of course,
you know?
Of course they don't.
I had a client that I had to
do
teach
it in Swahili.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I had to teach the dog all Turkish commands. So every time I went there, I had to remember every single word, which was a Turkish word for the command. And I think the dog obviously started understanding both, but it was confusing because it's not what's reflexive, right?
It's interesting. Yeah.
I already told Rach when we get our dog, I'm going to teach it in Japanese.
Hectic.
Yeah,
that's sick.
Yeah, it's perfect. Like you know, and again, like our old boy Zuka, like most of his commands were in German. And with Mr. Smith, like Kat has kind of carried on, you know, Platz, which is drop, and you know, she's sort of carried those sorts of commands on.
It's more just to stop my idiot friends, you know, screwing with the dog, really.
Well, for us at work, it's you know, we've spoken about this on the podcast before. Is that, you know, if I told Spades to come,
his commands get poisoned.
He's not coming to me. I have to say here because come has been heard heaps. He's you know, all the commands have been washed up.
One of the things that
go ahead, go.
Sorry, mate. One of the things that I love that my dog does is like she sits pretty, right? And she's offered this behavior for a long time, but when I trained it, or when I taught it, it was very, very highly reinforced. So it doesn't matter if I'm standing there with food or if I have nothing and she just wants attention, she'll do her little sit pretty.
Yeah.
And I called it Peasy. And you know Forrest Mickey, right? So Forrest and I are relatively, we're pretty good mates. So I would be hanging out with Forrest and we'd be training dogs or whatever, and he'd be catching a dog and playing around, and he would always say Peasy. He's like, Peasy, like just mucking around. I'm like, what is that, man? Like, and he's just like, it's just a word that I made up that just flows really easily.
Mm-hmm.
So when I taught Puppy to sit pretty, I said, I'll name it Peasy.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, what's Peasy? I'm like, it's just this word. Like, it means nothing. And they're like, oh. But now so many of our clients have taught their dogs Peasy, and they're all like, sit pretty. It's like, Peasy. All these dogs sort of sit there like this, which is quite cool. But again, it's just
doesn't
proving,
matter,
man.
It
It's
could be
just,
purple monkey dishwasher as long as it's
exactly. It's just the thing, right?
We know then anyone who says Peasy is part of your cult then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm big about dogs having a job, right? And especially our domestic dogs, and what we're teaching all of our clients: your dog needs a job. If we don't give him any biological fulfillment, that's probably why they're an asshole living in your house.
Is he an asshole or is it your fault?
It's a perception. It's perspective, right? I think he's an asshole, but he's having a good time, right? But I guess dogs that aren't being fulfilled mentally and physically can be very painful to live with, and then they're just not happy dogs. They think they're happy, but they could be stressed, anxious. So, what sort of jobs do you give your dogs, your personal dogs?
A really good example of that is we used to have a dog called Otto, and he was a Rottweiler. He was a rescue. So we got a phone call from one of our local vets, and he said, "Look, we've got this young dog in. He's probably around about 12 months of age. He was locked in a garage. He was never fed from a food bowl. He was crazy, crazy skinny. He's very, very fearful. And, do you want to come and have a look at him?" So we're like, all right. So we went and picked Otto up. And pretty much for the rest of his life, he remained like pretty fearful of most people, definitely worse with men, but he was very, very predictable, right? Especially with people coming over to our house. There was always a crate set up on the lounge, so somebody would come to the door, we're like, in your crate, and he would just run to his crate and he'd just hang out in his crate. What we found with him is, on this whole give your dog a job kind of mindset, we bought like a little backpack for him, and we would put his backpack on when we would go for a walk, and we would throw like a ball or whatever, like something light and little in there, and he would just carry this ball around, or a bag of rice or whatever, and his backpack, and that was his job. And the way that he would settle was night and day. Like, you'd take the backpack off and he'd be really, really jittery again. You'd put the backpack on, he's like, right. Like, it was like that task focused behavior. Like, all right, I've got a job and I'm carrying my backpack and I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. So, anytime people sort of talk about giving dogs a job, Otto really springs to mind, man. And that was it was a massive savior for him. It really helped him settle down and gave him some clarity on what he should be doing. So yeah, he was a fun dog. He was a bit crazy as well, but that was an interesting one.
Yeah, totally. Well, talking about being from what we experienced of our very short lockdown here in Sydney, is that I found that a lot of people obviously lost their jobs and, they were out of routine. And I tell my clients all the time to have structure about what you do. So you walk every day, you do training every day, you feed your dog every day. So all the things you do, don't keep it such an intense structure. Don't keep it exactly the same. Then your dog's banging your door down at 6 p.m. wanting to get fed and always expecting to go for a walk when you get home from work, things like that. So just switch it up a little bit so that way the dog's not super reliant. And my dogs get fed sometimes 11 at night, 3 in the afternoon. At different times, right? So they're not on edge waiting and assessing every single movement that I do in the house.
Yeah,
and
that's
I
right.
feel that's what's happened with people as well, is that if they wake up at 6, they leave the house by 7, get to work by 8, and they're very much in this strict routine, and then that changes on them. We lose a sense of identity almost, right? It's like, well, I thought I was the things that I do, rather than being, I won't get super philosophical right now, whether the dogs think that deep or not, but they're a product of their environment. They're a product of their routines, and to switching it up is really important. And obviously you've been has it been like 100 days or something that you guys have been in lockdown? Maybe
Yeah,
longer?
well, in this latest stage of lockdown, it's something like like this stage 4 or whatever they're calling it. Yeah, it's
Yeah. So like,
we've been on lockdown since March of some
yeah,
variety.
yeah. So like, so obviously that's affecting a lot of people and stuff. So like, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts about for people and their dogs, right? Like, are people still allowed to walk their dogs in Melbourne, stage 4?
Yeah, so that was probably the savior for a lot of people is you could have like when we were locked down like at the strictest limits, you could go outside for an hour a day for exercise, and that
Yeah.
was that included walking your dog.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go for half an hour and then in the morning half hour at night. It was meant to just be 1 hour.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of people actually were getting out and walking their dogs. In our area, I actually found it relatively good. Like I would go for a walk or go for a run or whatever. Most people were actually very, very good with their dogs, and the dogs got better as they practiced the habits. People were really respectful. On lead areas didn't really have dogs off lead. Or if dogs were off lead, they're actually really, really well behaved, and they just would ignore people. They weren't that friendly dog who would come over. They would actually just walk past people or walk past dogs. So that was quite good, but that was in our area where we are. In surrounding suburbs, it definitely wasn't the case. People had, off lead dogs just going nuts in on lead areas, which is, not beneficial for anybody. So you could walk your dog and you could exercise and that sort of thing. I think one of the things that I found beneficial during all of this lockdown was to be really mindful of what I was doing. If I was doing the dishes, I would kind of stay focused on that. Or one of the things that I started to do in this latest lockdown was I learned how to tie a whole bunch of different knots. Like scout style.
Yeah.
So I would just YouTube knots, or I ended up getting an app on my phone. A friend of mine, he's like, mate, have you seen this app? I'm like, nope. So downloaded this app, and I just learned how to tie, probably 10 different types of knots, and I filmed those, and I just put that up on my Facebook page, and all of a sudden I'm getting all these messages from people like literally around the world going, I'm loving your videos, man. Have you seen this knot? And when I was doing, when I was in the army, we used to do this, or when I was in Boy Scouts, we used to do these knots. It's cool. Or here's a different way to do it. But it was about really staying task focused and doing something mindfully.
Do you think also doing something not going to say physical like going to the gym, but using your hands and tying your physical and mental sort of, cognitive and physical abilities together, right? Like, because tying a knot is quite a detailed sort of thing, right? Like, it's not like just playing a video game or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Sort of stimulates the body and the mind.
I think any type of learning during this time has been relatively good. And I think if you're learning, whether you're learning how to play guitar or the drums or tie knots, like whatever it might be, if you're doing something mentally and then doing something physically at the same time, I think the same for our dogs, right? It probably fatigues us a little bit more. And by doing that, it will de-stress us. And I think that's what I found. Every time I was doing knots and I was doing those sorts of things, I was really, really focused on it. And because I was recording it, I was more focused on it. So I think those types of things really actually did help me, right? And all of our gyms were closed, so you can't go to the gym and lift heavy things or punch things or do jiu-jitsu because all the gyms are closed, so you're not allowed to do that. So combining something mentally with something physical, exactly what we were talking about in regards to giving our dogs jobs, I think that kind of placated some of the stress levels that I was feeling anyway, right? So I think that was certainly a good thing for me.
Yeah, look, I think I remember ages ago, like years ago, I thought I'm so big on mental physical stimulation for dogs. It's what they need. And we're talking about it to people that don't think about it. So people get a dog, they thought, oh, well, it's Lassie, the dog will be good. Just hang out with me. It's going to be picture perfect. And then obviously our job is to try to fix a lot of relationships that people have with their dogs and to give them and share these concepts so that people can have dogs that are living their best life. And then it was only later down the track I thought, how am I stimulating my mind and body? And I was doing it, but not purposefully doing it. And it sounds like here you've learnt the skills of how to fulfill a dog's needs biologically, and that you're now adapting those concepts into your own life now that you're fully, locked down at home, not allowed to fucking leave the house. It's ridiculous. So unnatural, but finding opportunities to obviously to rise to the occasion and make the most out of it. And that's what people should be doing with their dogs. They should be doing that with their dogs regardless and regularly, without having to go to group class and things like that. We should be taking these lessons. And of course, hopefully through the podcast, people are listening to this and going, well, then why aren't we doing this with our dogs? But especially in times of need. Like there's times where I'll call Luke and I'm having a shit day and just need a brother to talk to. And he's like, bro, have you broken a sweat today? I'm like, fuck, I forgot.
Get the heart going.
Let's do that. And it's always better after, and I haven't gone to the gym in a long time, but I train at home and I have the luxury of.
You don't have to go to the gym. Like if you've got your kettlebells or
100%.
mate, if you've got a patch, 2 by 2 meter, 4 square meter thing, you can do 50 burpees or like just run on the spot, like just get the heart cranking.
Exactly.
You'll feel better.
So important, and
I did in the middle of all this, I did a couple of things. One of the things that I was doing a little while ago was I wanted to do 100 burpees in 10 minutes. So that was an interesting fun challenge. And I told him, mate, he's like, is that pretty hard? I went, well, I think it's pretty hard. Like I haven't quite done it. I think the highest I got was 94 or 95 or something like that.
I used to be able to do 75 in 5 minutes, but there's no way I could do that now. That was a few years ago.
So my mate Zach goes, I'm gonna have a go. So nice. he punched him out in like 9 minutes 20 or something. I'm like, fuck, bro. But so there was that, and then I did the push-up challenge. We're a really good mate of mine. He messaged me. He's like, hey, bro, I'm doing the push-up challenge. Do you want in? I went, what is it? He's like, we're doing 3,200 and something push-ups or whatever. Over a couple of weeks. I'm like, mate, I haven't done like 1,000 push-ups in my life.
But I'll do 1,000 in the next 2 weeks.
And then I got the breakdown of it, and I'm like, oh my, like I've got to do like 100 and something every day. Jesus. Like, and then worked it out. And what they would do is that it was raising awareness for mental health. So like the first day it was 124 because there's 12.4% of people will have whatever, right? So they kind of broke it down. They did a really good job. But then there's days where you're doing like 235 push-ups, So I would get up every morning. I started to practice push-ups before this challenge because I'm like, I need to see if I can actually do push-ups, right?
And do them properly, so you don't hurt yourself.
And do them properly, and get your body used to it. So the first day, I think I did 50 or something like that. And then, the next day, I'm like, geez, I can't do any today. I'm so sore. But by the time it started, like I was enjoying it and punching them out. But I'd get up and I would just do sets of 20. And if I could do 60 before I left home to go to work, because this is when we were working as well. If I did 60, then I'd go to a client, then I'd do 20, then I'd go to another client, do another 20. So by the time I got home, I'm like, I'm either done or I've got 20 to do, So
that's awesome.
Doing something like that throughout the day kept me mentally focused. And as you say, mate, if you're doing something hard each day and working up a bit of a sweat, then it helps your brain for sure.
Yeah,
it clears stuff out, right?
Totally. Discipline, like it's Jocko Willing's, discipline equals freedom. Love that one. But a new one I listened to on Joe Rogan with Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson said, discipline is doing things that you hate, but do it as if you love it. And that's and that's so true. In terms of motivating and manipulating behavior is everything that we do. And if we can just focus that towards ourselves, like we can learn so much from our practice with our dog training, because understand the fundamentals of behavior and how it works and we were talking just off air before was that, it can annoy us of how much conditioning is being used on us. And if you're aware of it, it annoys you. It may or may not work as well because you can maybe try to push against it, but it's happening. through nature regardless. But if you
Yeah.
can be aware of, okay, well, this is how I'm being broken down, whether it's by external factors or by internal factors, well, then how can I make it serve me, or how can I condition myself? And I swear we condition our son for sleeping. We put the sound machine on just before bed. Good night, bye bye. We do our prayers. Like it's a routine. So, and then I've practiced the art of settling a baby over the last year and a half almost. And
Yeah.
now, if he gets up in the middle of the night, just walking over and and just giving a little tap and just a quick little shh. A lot of the time, maybe not every time, but a lot of the times, boom, he's just clocked out. You can hear him sleeping again. And that's within like seconds. It's because of that conditioning. So then if we can understand, well, and then obviously bringing it back around to dogs and how there's a symbiotic relationship here is that, well, then condition your animals to do things, condition yourself to do things. And if you can do that by learning it through your dog, that's what I'm all about anyways, that how can we make the connections? Most of us dog trainers, we hear so many other dog trainers say, I got into dogs because I don't like people. For me, I love people, and dogs can make our lives better. So then that's why I love to train dogs. I do love people better than dogs.
Really, you're training people, aren't you?
It's all people training,
Yeah.
right? But you have to love dogs, and you should love the other side of the lead. Otherwise, what are you doing it all for? This is a question I love to ask my our guests if I have the chance. Is like, why do you love dogs?
It's a good question, Panos. And for me, it's because they're the one thing that I've really seen that truly love unconditionally. Like whether you're having an absolute shitty day, the dog doesn't care, and they're always happy to see you. Like it's that joke of, who loves you the most? Is it your wife or your dog? Well, lock them in the boot of the car for an hour and then open it and see who's happy to see you.
Yeah.
Right? The dog is like, our dogs are just always there. They're always happy to see you. They always want to please you. And I think we can learn a shitload from having that mentality and living each day as if it's our last, trying to be better every time. That's sort of, to me, that's what dogs do, like they're not focused. Have you ever seen a dog and through whatever has happened, but they've had a leg amputated or something?
Yeah, like a
3 days
dog,
after the surgery, they're sitting there and going, all right, I've got 3 legs, let's go. Like, now I just figure this out, and I fall over and I get up. They don't feel sorry for themselves. Exactly. Whereas if that's us, like we need physical treatment, we need mental health for months or years or ongoing forever, whatever it might be. We kind of have this thing where as a dog just sits there and goes, okay, now I've got 3 legs. Cool, let's go.
Yes.
Like now I've just got to figure out how I run down the beach with 3 legs instead of 4. Beautiful. I'll figure that out.
Exactly.
Consciousness is a blessing and a curse, I think,
Yeah, I sort of think so. And then what you were saying before, Panos, about discipline equals freedom. So I use that a lot, and I've followed Jocko for a long time, and that sort of thing. It's a saying. I've written a blog in regards to discipline equals freedom and that sort of thing, which is good. But another thing that I heard, which I thought was really, really important, is it's the days that you don't want to train that are the important ones,
Yes.
So it was from a guy who was doing triathlons, and he was 5 days out of the 7, he's like, can't wait, get up, go for a swim, then go for a bike ride, or go for a bike ride, then go for a run. And then 2 days, he'll be like, kind of done a fair bit this week, maybe I'll just bin it, maybe I won't do it, or it's raining and it's cold, and then it's those moments where you decide, I've got to do it. They're the ones that are the important ones. Like that's what training is. Not when you want to go, it's the days that you don't want to go but do it anyway, right? So
one
I think
way I like to frame it as well is like when I'm feeling like shit, I don't want to train, I don't want to do this or that. Like particularly with regards to training, like I try and think about it of after training. So it's like, when was the last time you trained and felt worse? Like it doesn't happen. You always feel better.
Yeah.
You might not feel like doing it, but you think like, if I do it, then I'm going to feel so much better.
Yeah. That happened on Friday night. I was sitting there and I had a 8:30 session booked in for boxing on a Friday night. Who the fuck trains 8:30 on a Friday night? And I'm sitting there. I had a light dinner, and it was probably like 5 to 8, and he's not very far from my house, and I'm sitting there maxed out on the couch, could have stayed there all night and passed out, and Tanya's like, "You got boxing at 8:30." I'm like, "Yeah," and she was like, "Oh, can you be fucked going?" I'm like, "No." And she goes, "You're not going?" I'm like, "I didn't say I'm not going. I said I couldn't be fucked. I don't want
Doesn't mean
to.
I'm not gonna go.
I would hate to go right now. His dog staunches me every time I go there, and it's just I can't be bothered. I have to sweat. I mean, you know what he makes me do? 5 minutes of hitting the pads, technical stuff. He's teaching me stuff, and he goes, "Cool, 40 push-ups." I'm like, "What?" Like the first time he said that, I'm like, "That is ridiculous." And I did it. 40 push-ups hurt, especially like with no break, and then boom, straight into it. And I love it. I love that he pushes me and he gets me. And right after, I came home psyched.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Let's do shit." And she's like, "It's 9:30 now. You have to relax." And I'm
No.
No, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, but I tell people when training our dogs is practice this shit when you don't need it. So when you need it, you've got it. It's there ready to go. Don't be, "I can't be bothered, but then you complain that your dog doesn't listen to you or your dog doesn't go anywhere because it doesn't listen to you. So practice all of this stuff as if your dog needs to do it tomorrow. And that way and I train as if I'm going to fight tomorrow, even though most likely, and I hope that I don't fight tomorrow, is that I do it because it fulfills that beast within me. If I don't tame it, then it's going to, then it's going to screw me up anyway. But it's the same, especially with your higher energy dogs, is that if you're not giving him the sport, if you're not giving him the stimulation, and then what are you doing?
I'll find it elsewhere.
Of course. And I do that. A lot of the stuff that I learn and that I teach is that I do it with Nookie, and she was just on Luke's lap just then. She's like 4.4 kilos. She's nothing. But, I didn't walk her yesterday. People. Oh, my God, you're going to kill me. But it was raining. It was cold, and I couldn't be bothered. And
says the
boom,
dog
The other days you need to do it.
I said it, and I'm human. I fucked up. But today I know that we're going extra. We're doing the extra work because I could see that she's out of routine. But she doesn't beg for me. She doesn't bang on the door. She doesn't bark. But you can tell when she hasn't gotten it, and I can tell when I haven't gotten my fix one way or another. And we work on our dogs as if they have to do everything tomorrow. So that way when we absolutely need it, we've got it, and they're better off for it because they're getting action every day, and we don't want to be waiting for problems to occur. We want to be proactive about it all the time, especially from your relationship being young, whether it's a puppy or not.
Yeah, 100%. It's really interesting, what you just said is, she's a small little dog. She's 4.4 kilos. I didn't walk her. She's only little. I don't really need to walk her type thing. It's like, no. So many of those terrier type, like, do you know what sort of dog it is? It's a terrier. Do you know what they do? Terrier things, right? And do you know how long they do them for? Fucking hours.
Ever.
So let the dog be a terrier,
Yes.
It's like, you see that all the time. It's a thing that people, when they do get those little dogs, often they sit there and go, well, they're little and they'll be like little couch potatoes, but like you've got a Jack Russell Terrier or whatever it is, like they like to do stuff and they like to do stuff all day. And
waiting
like
for the rat to make a noise so we can kill it. Right?
Exactly. And they're happy to wait, man. Like they're happy to pace up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down.
Or they'll be listening while they're sleeping anyway.
Yeah.
Totally.
So the little dogs are cool as, man.
Yeah, well, like you said before, like you train at sport dog training techniques to your clients, and I find doing that a lot. Like we go to very many similar seminars sometimes when you're down here in Sydney, and I learn, like, I'm there thinking, first of all, I'm taking in maybe 5 to 10% of practical stuff from this. The rest of that 90% is understanding mentality and psychology. And I'm not a boxer. I'm not I don't fight professionally. I don't even fight ever, right? But I do those techniques and apply them to myself because it fulfills me and it's difficult. And we have to do that same, like now, maybe how you train your dogs personally and how you would train your client's dog may differ depending on the person, the dog, etc. But, I'm trying to input a little bit of that sport mentality into some of your training, so I can speak for Nookie because Spades is like almost 10. He's very chilled out and doesn't have that sort of drive. I fulfill him in other ways, but with Nookie, I'm using that tug and that ball religiously with her for her training. And if she was a big dog, she'd be a pain in the ass to deal with, but because she's small, it's easy, right? But we still input that same sort of intensity. But how do you find reconciling your learning how sport training and sport training concepts work into into client dogs? Like, how do you reconcile that, and how do you teach it? Or
Where's that happy medium, you know?
Yeah. So one of the things that I find is important, and like Panos, we've been at a lot of seminars together and hung out a lot of those seminars together, right? So there's a few factors here that I think anytime you go to a seminar, like it's all information. And I think some, especially when you're newer in the industry, you might go to, one person's seminar and be like, that's what I've got to do. And then you change all these things that you do. And then you go to another one and you change everything you're doing. Go to another one and change everything you're doing. And pretty soon you kind of don't know what you should be doing.
And actually, what makes it worse sometimes, you feel worse about it. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, that's right. So when I go to seminars, I see everything that happens and I take it all in as information. And then generally I come back, and in our group classes, I don't change anything. Mm-hmm. Right. Sometimes there might be little things that will shift. And especially with newer trainers, like if our trainers come along to these seminars, are like, yeah, like let's start to do more, of this style stuff. Like let's teach the heel in the first timers because it's really, and it's like, no, just stop, slow down.
Cool your jets.
Yeah. The important thing with pet dog trainers that I find that we have as clients is they don't care about a focused heel when they're starting. Can the dog sit? Can the dog drop? Will the dog come back to them? And can they walk nicely on the lead? Right. So to me, that's the first stage. One of our clients, a lady called Brooke, she had a beautiful big Leon burger called Charlie, and Brooke said to me, like, this is how we're going to teach you drop. She's like, look, I don't care if he goes into Sphinx position, like it doesn't worry me. He's a large breed, he's going to fall onto his hip. And I went, well, is it an issue for you? And she's like, nah. I said, look, we teach it this way because it's really easy. If it's not an issue for you, then don't worry about it. And Brooke's like, okay. I said, but just so you know, you might really enjoy training dogs and you might want to compete in like a dog sport, rally-o or something like that one day. And she's like, I don't think so. Like, I really enjoy them. There's a whole bunch of stuff I want to do, but I don't think so. I'm like, that's cool. Like, literally 6 months later, she's like, fuck, I want to do rally-o. And I go drop, and he just falls over on his hip and he's lying like this. So she spent like the rest of Charlie's life trying to fix this like lazy drop, So that's one of those things in regards to when I say, we're doing sport dog training. Like, we teach them the sport dog techniques, but they don't have to compete. It's about, if they're learning something new, then teach them the best way to learn it, right? And that's for the dog and the person. So when we go to these seminars, I might take little bits and pieces away and then come back, and our advanced level, we will do it in our advanced levels. Yeah. I'll sit there and I'll go, all right, guys, let's play with this. And we also have, it's not just our trainers that actually come to seminars. Like, a lot of our clients now will go to seminars. Like, they really enjoy it. And we're lucky enough that with the culture of our club, like, we've got a whole bunch of people that go off and compete. And when they go off and compete, they generally win everything. So they'll go and do rally-o, or they'll go and do AKC obedience, or whatever it is. So they go off and clean up, because we've taught them the basics and the fundamentals so well. So if they're walking along and the dog is not pulling on the lead, then that's one thing they don't have to worry about. And they know the dog will come when they call them. They know they'll drop when they tell them. And we add distractions in our high levels like all the time. So when they're doing a group drop stay to, in an ANKC obedience trial, and there's a dog 20 meters away running around because it's off lead, our dogs don't care about it, right? Whereas a lot of other dogs will go, oh my God, I haven't seen this picture before. Whereas for us, it's normal. Exactly. So when we're going to these seminars and we're learning all of these new sorts of things, usually it's our advanced clients who are really, they're already really invested in their dogs. So we add the information to what they do, but it's not the whole seminar. It's like, hey, I like that. That can work. Let's play with hand placement. Let's play with direct and indirect rewards and those sorts of things. And we play around with those sorts of things. But for a person, when it's in their first 1 to 10 weeks, or even, 1 to 6 months, right? Like, they don't care.
Exactly
They
right.
don't care about a really nice focused heel yet.
I
But
guess
we
one,
start to set little patterns for them
yeah,
where they can develop those sorts of things.
exactly. Well, as a trainer, it keeps you sharp too, right? Like if you just stayed within your own echo chamber and just teaching people and never keeping yourself up to date, then you're always
Yeah.
doing the same thing over and over again. And I do feel that, you know, and even now, like, well, it's been a while since I've been a seminar, but coming back going, oh, like I did it this way and then he said that way and blah 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 and then
It's those little niggling questions in your mind,
yeah.
isn't it? You think,
But over time you see, oh, you know what?
but
With
then
this
if you
dog, I'm
did a
going to use that.
seminar and you explained all your techniques, then that same person who came to yours would be like, "Oh,
Oh
should
my
I do it
god,
this
should I
way?"
do
Or
this, that? So yeah, you
Mm.
have to have a level. And look, and I think about like if someone like a child 6 years old and you're going to teach them how to pass a ball. How about you teach them how to pass a ball in soccer, like a soccer style pass? Teach it to
Yeah.
them as if a professional would have taught any would teach their child, for example. Why go? Hey, look, he passes like shit, and it only takes an extra couple of seconds to fix a technique. Why not? Why not do it good from the beginning rather than doing it shit all the time and
Yeah.
practicing mistakes? It makes no sense. So keeping sharp, and I
Yeah.
think that's one thing you could take from sport dog sort of training to client dog is some precision. Some people may have a really jacked up, intense dog and is willing to go that little bit extra, and you can see they're like asking the questions. You're like, you are ready for something a little bit more advanced where you
Exactly.
know, Joe Blow down the street may not care. It's like, bro, I just want him to stay there.
and
it's
not
like,
run away.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're not
Yeah.
going to do too much detail, but there's still precision involved with it. It's not like some computer that's going to be programmed. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things for us that we like, especially with our higher level members or people who come down and train with us. We get phone calls and they'll be having a problem at home or Facebook message or whatever, and they start to sit there and say like, okay, what would Brent tell me to do, or what would Kat tell me to do, or what would a trainer tell me? And as soon as they start to think like that, they figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, now you're thinking like a dog trainer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's kind of what we want them to do. We want them to figure out how to train their dog, because there's always going to be something that pops up,
For sure.
right? Like a dog gets injured or they need surgery and then now they can't quite do what they used to be doing, or they've got to take the dog back a few steps. It's like, okay, well, what can I do now?
Mm-hmm.
And when they start to sort of sit there and ask themselves those questions, instead of just calling us and going, oh, what do I do? It's like, oh, what would Brent say? What would Kat say to me that I should do with my dog? And then they message and they go, hey, look, I asked myself this question. These are the answers that I came up with. What do you think? And we're like, perfect. Like, you've got it. Just do that.
Exactly.
You know, so I think that's where something like a seminar, and like I love learning, right? So if there's a seminar and I can get to it, I'm going, because you always learn stuff at seminars, right?
Yeah.
Part of it is catching up with people. So, you know, when I come up to Sydney, I see all of the Sydney crew and I love it. Like it is it's my Sydney family, you know, and it's awesome. I love hanging out with Cookie and Pat and you guys. The crew up there are amazing. So that's definitely a part of it. But a massive thing is the reason I've been to a lot of seminars and I've seen trainers multiple times is because it just helps solidify stuff in my head.
Yeah.
And then you hear things over and over and over and you get more depth to that knowledge. So yeah, I think that ongoing learning, mate, is super important.
100%. You know, I tell my clients all the time, like, you know, and nothing against board and train or anything, is that you can do the board and train, teach all the basic commands, you get the dog, you keep it up, that's cool. One thing I would tell people, and you can see sometimes if they're getting a little bit distracted by something, is that, look, I'm trying to make you a dog trainer for your dog. So that way I'm trying to make my job obsolete, and I want you to not need me anymore.
Like a good doctor, eh?
Good doctor,
The
good priest,
best doctor
right?
is you don't need them.
Yes. You want to send these people away. I'm trying to politely get rid of you.
Teach them to fish, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. And that's so important, where some people want to hold the secrets, so then you keep coming back to me like a charlatan style thing, you know? And you don't want that. You want to teach them how to think for themselves, how to understand what it is, and of course as much to their own ability as they can. But I love that you said that, because it makes so much sense, and that's the real hard job. And if I want to get somebody on doing what I do, it's about understanding the human side of them understanding as much as it is the skills of dog training itself.
Yeah, I think a big part of it, and you know, you touched on it before too, Panos, where trainers sit there and say, you know, I got into dogs because I don't like people. It's like, at the end of the day, if that's what you truly think, then go and do board and trains and work at a kennel and don't do handovers, right? Like, go and do that. If that's the way you really feel, perfect. Like, there is a role for you.
Exactly.
But if you're doing private consults, like, we're teachers. At the end of the day, we're there to teach, and we're not teaching the dog, we're teaching the human.
And you got to really love that. You got to love your client in a way of like, hey, this is because we're connecting, we're opening up. And I love some of the random conversations I have with my clients. If we're at the back end of our third session and we're walking back, it's 15 minutes to go, and we just start talking about shit. And it's like, hey, and after like 7 minutes of chatting, I go, hey, just so you know, this is the conversation we just had. You haven't been bothered by your dog. Your dog's following you. We stopped at the curb. Your dog sits. It's just a normal conversation. That's the point of all of this. It's not to be flashy and crazy and everything. It's about getting what it is that you want from your dog. And the point is, you may not even know what your dog actually wants or needs or what you would like from your dog, but I'll show you. If you enjoy it, then that's cool. And it's so powerful.
Yeah, that's kind of what we touched on earlier too, Luke. You know, when we were saying you don't know what you don't know. You know,
exactly.
People, that's what we find in our beginners levels as people start to do, and they get a little bit more, and then they get a little bit more. And I sit there and say to them, guys, go and put your dog away in the car or whatever, come back and watch our advanced level. Because at this stage, you're just like, oh, look, my dog sits when I tell him, and then he drops and he comes back. Like, that's cool. Like, but go and look at what our advanced levels are doing. And they're like, oh, I didn't know I could teach my dog to do that. Like, yeah. Like, these are the things that we do. And they're like, oh. And then that lights that little bit of a fire under them. And, you know, we've had people who are now onto their third and fourth dogs that still come down and train with us, you know, every Sunday, because they love like, I'm not really teaching them anything new, right? Some of these dogs are phenomenal dogs, but they're coming down just to hang out with us and with their friends, right? The people that they train with. Now it's a community. Yeah. So that to me is something that we're really proud of, that we've created, is this community around dog training. And there's no bitchiness. Like, nobody comes down and argues. There's no fights. There's no bagging of other people or trainers or anything like that. Like, we just don't stand for it. It's like, it's not what we want.
It's funny, because off mic, we were talking before we started recording this, we were talking about, you know, social media and that, and the reason that you saying, you know, you deleted Facebook off your phone. And like, personally, I don't use social media at all like, it's what I mean personally. Like, we've got socials for the podcast and that, and, you know, when I start my business, I'll have it surely for that. But you know, like, that's the biggest thing about social media in the terms of the negative aspect, is that you just having these people having these sort of ridiculous arguments and putting stuff out there that they would probably never say to someone face to face. And it's just so, like, we're not evolved for that. We've got these like incredibly powerful, you know, computers and social networks that just totally outmaneuver and overpower our basically, you know, our brains that haven't evolved in the last 10, 20,000 years, you know?
I think that's one of the things, Luke, with our group class and with the culture of our group class and all those sorts of things. Like, they all care. I think that's one of the things that's really, really important. Like, they actually care. They care about their dog, and they care about each other, and they care about our business. Like, our clients in this time have been fucking amazing. Like, they've sent food to us. They've sent like macaroons. They've bought memberships for dogs that haven't been born yet, you know?
Yeah, wow.
Like, it's like they've continued to pay membership, because we've got, the way that our structure is we have a pay-as-you-go, where you just pay on the day, or you can sign up for a membership. And we've got a 12-month membership or a lifetime of your dog membership, right? So they're the sort of three options that we have. People are paying for memberships when they can't train. Like, we haven't trained since March. And I'm like, hey, do you guys want to put this on hold? And they're like, nah, we're good. Like, we'll just keep paying. Like, I'm working. Awesome. Like, it's just...
That's a good testament to you guys, man, and where your heart and soul is at.
Puts your faith in people, eh?
Yeah. And it's really touching. It's very humbling. But
But it's also a testament to your
I
the
know
community that you've built and the
Yeah.
work that you've done. You know, that wouldn't just
Exactly.
happen like overnight.
No, like we had a lady come down. This is quite a few years ago now. She came down on Sunday and she rocked up to train. She had this beautiful boxer, so she's rocked up, and she walked over to Kat, and paid her money, and she walked over to Kat and she's like, "I lost my husband on Friday."
Yeah, right.
Like, what? It's like, well, why are you here? She's like, I had to come down.
Yeah,
This is my community.
Yeah, I need to hang out. Yeah.
Oh wow,
Like,
man.
That sort of thing means a lot, like that's
Beautiful.
crazy. Yeah,
100%.
it's cool. It's so cool. So yeah,
Exactly.
we're really lucky with the community we have and what we've cultivated and the people that we attract too, right? So yeah, we're super
Exactly.
lucky.
No issue. Well, it's as we've been saying, it's an extension from where you guys have started and why you started in the first place, and you'll see that as a reflection of it. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
What are you guys doing with your clients now? Are you giving them what advice have you been giving them?
Do,
What
like
could you
online
give
stuff
them?
or
Mate, in all honesty, I think I've been bloody terrible at keeping up on our clients. Like we put some stuff on our Facebook page, but I've really struggled with it. I've reached out to a lot of people and just sort of said, mate, how you going? Is everything all right? Anything we can do? But it's actually something I've kind of struggled with.
Yeah,
I've struggled with just the online connection. I don't feel that it's the best way to do it.
It's not the same.
It's difficult, that's for sure.
Yeah. Like I enjoy people, and I enjoy the group classes that I do run. Like I love those. So doing something online has been really hard. What I have done is I've developed an online training course, which has gone really well. That's been awesome. One of our clients jumped on this Facebook page, and it's all about tricks. So teaching your dog tricks. And then she messaged all of our clients like, jump on this page, like you get a novice, an intermediate, an advanced, and whatever I can't remember, trick title, right? And they messaged me and they're like, why don't you do it? I'm like, fuck yes. Like, I'm going to do that. So that's been something totally away from our business. It's someone else's business.
And that's available now as an online course?
My course is. So I've got a course which is group class mastery.
Nice.
But this tricks one is another lady's business, Australian All Stars Tricks or something like that. So all of our clients are going, hey, let's do something, like let's train our dogs. So we're all putting these videos up of our dogs. Nice. And like that to me is really cool. We don't have the thing of you have to train with us, and if you want to go to another club, then fuck you. We sit there and go and see what they're doing. Like if you want to go and do rallyo, go and do rallyo. If you want to go and do ANKC, go and do that. If you want to go and do tricks, go and do that. This is what we do. But they all come back and they all train with us. So this whole tricks thing that we've been doing online, because it's just online stuff through a Facebook page, like that's been awesome. Exactly. But in regards to looking after my clients, like, mate, I think, to be honest, I've been pretty shit with it.
That's all right. Well, if any of them are listening, I'm sure that they love you and support you, and they're probably going to be listening to the episode. So what advice would you give everybody that's in lockdown or even are in difficult times? What should people be doing if they are limited with social exposure and leaving the house and things like
dogs?
That? Yeah. What should they be doing with their dogs?
I think doing something like just trick training, just playing around with tricks is awesome. Because you can't, as you're teaching your dog, there shouldn't be frustration, because the dogs are learning new things, and it should just be fun. And the trick can be anything, right? Like I taught my Malinois to go over. We've got these doggy doorbells, and they're like the button's about this big on them, the big yellow button, and then the doorbell has like 40 different like ringtones, like it's happy birthday, or it's like all these stupid different random songs that it plays. So I taught her to, one of the things was go over and press a button, so she'd go and do that. I've taught her to lie down and roll over, which is the slowest thing you've ever seen in your life, but like So it was just all of these new things just to teach. And
love it.
That's the whole thing of the relationship. Like we're really big on the relationship that you have with your dog. So Kat talks about it as dating and dogs. And I think that's a really, really good way to put it, where if you're out with your dog, are you invested in what's happening right now with your dog, or are you walking along the street, like, you know, on your phone, not caring about your dog, you know, those sorts of things.
That's
so
my bugbear.
Yep.
Yeah. So spend that time with your dog, like, but make it fun.
Yeah.
And don't put pressure on. Like that was the whole thing in regards to this trick training stuff. It's like, don't put pressure on yourself, and don't put pressure on your dog. Like, just have some fun and just learn something new, you know, like teach your dog something new. And it could be something super basic. It might be sit pretty, could be the peasy, right? So teach that. But there's a lot of ways to teach dogs tricks. So do that. Just have fun with them. I think that certainly helped me. And then filming it, you know, like just filming the stuff that you're doing. We talk about it all the time of filming, like film a training session. And then I've done that a lot with dogs. And then doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, start to film me doing jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible.
That's what I'm doing.
I think I'm looking like an athlete, right? But apparently I'm not. So when it'd be the same with boxing, right? Like look at how far your boxing has come. And if you film a session of you hitting the bag and then you film it in 3 months' time or something, like it's going to be vastly different. So even with the trick training
too, and also for self improvement and like to give yourself criticism.
And doing that with my dog training, I see just little things. I'm like, why are you doing that? I remember putting a video up a few years ago, and I can't remember what it was, but I had Puppy and I marked it, and then I was feeding, right? And Pat Stewart messaged me. He's like, bro, why are you feeding and marking at the same time? I'm like, not. He's like, you are. I'm like, fucking not, mate. Like, you go click and then food, right? He's like, what's your video? And I went, all right. Oh yeah, 100%. I'm like, food, yes.
Exactly.
So but if you would ask me, and Pat did, I'm like, mate, no way.
Camera doesn't lie.
Camera doesn't lie, right? So it's these little things that can happen that you're not aware of, but
same as the dog, bro. The dog doesn't lie.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, like, you know, your missus could be watching you do it, but maybe you're not. Your missus is the dog trainer, but most other people that don't know the concepts, and then they're looking, they go, it looks awesome, and they're telling you it looks great, but from the trained eye, or if it's your own eye, if you're training yourself, then it's good to look back. I used to record most of my sessions, like so my professional, like when I first started dog training, I would record it, and I tell people this is not even for like social media, this is just for myself. I would go back home and look at it, of course, for the technique wise, but also I'm like, oh, did I really say that like that to that person? What an asshole am I?
Dickhead.
So how do you know though? Because you're in the middle, like, hey, stop it, what's wrong with you? I would say something like that, and I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't say that. So but yeah, you should be able to look back on yourself, and that can make the training a little bit more fun. If you are at home and you're bummed out because you can't leave 1 hour a day of walking, it's ridiculous. And but to do that may bring a bit more spice to your training. So that's pretty good advice, man.
I think it's do something with your dog that you enjoy, and it might be just getting up in the morning and sitting on the back deck and having a coffee with your dog. Just do that.
Yeah,
you know, but make it about the relationship that you're having with your dog. You know, so
remember why you love them.
Yeah, remember why you got them. Right. And I think also remember why you got them, and remember what it is that you wanted to do with this dream dog, right? Before you get your dog, what is it? I want to take my dog everywhere and go to the beach. It's like, well, cool. Start to work towards having that dream.
Yeah, I love that. That's good.
I think that's important.
That is awesome. Well, it's been an awesome convo, man. Is there any last things you want to
tell the people where they can find you? So it's the K9 Company, eh?
Yeah, so that K9 Company, letter K number 9, obviously on all the socials and that sort of thing. I'm on Instagram, so Brent Dry Dog Trainer. I'm also on Facebook, just Brent Dry. So I don't do a lot of Facebook friend things, but Instagram, jump on there for sure. I've got my course, which you can see on the website. So the Canine Company, if you go to the video page of that, it's called Group Class Mastery, and there's 2 parts to it. So the first part is I've done it for pet dog trainers, so you can just learn how to train, learn how we train dogs.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods, who's obviously an amazing golf player, he brought out a book years ago, and it was called How I Play Golf.
Mm-hmm.
And people are sitting there and going, "That's not a golf tutorial book." He's like, "No, it's how I play golf."
Yes.
Right? It's not technically perfect, but this is how I do it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the basis of the course. Like, this is how we train dogs in a group class setting.
Nice.
And then the other part of that is I did a professional page or a professional video for people who would like to actually learn how to run group classes. And I go through all of that. So I break down, how we started our group classes, what you need, things to think about, what equipment, and all of those sorts of things as well. So I've had some really cool feedback on those from a couple of people, especially a few overseas, which has been really nice. So,
well, bro, you just sold it, and when I'm getting home, I'm buying the course, man.
Check it out,
100%.
man. It's good. I'm really proud of it. And I use my puppy. So I used puppy.
Yeah.
And I also used Mr. Smith, who was a puppy, right? So
nice.
I started filming, I think,
when
legit.
He was, you filmed it with a dog in the process of actually learning stuff, not like having a dog that already knew stuff and then was like, this is how you do it, but the dog already knows it.
Yeah. And you see the ones, like, for instance, teaching him how to drop. You see the ones where he's like,
the shit
what?
ones.
I don't know how to follow a lure. I'm not sure what you're doing, So, and then you see how we deal with those sorts of things. So I'm proud of it. I'm really happy with it.
Sounds awesome.
The other thing for me is I've also learned a little bit about video editing. So that's been handy through all this lockdown crap too.
Legit.
It's been fun.
Totally. Well, bro, it's been a freaking awesome conversation, and it's good to get to know you a little bit deeper as well. And hope everyone that's listening is enjoying the episode. So so go check out the Canine Club. Did I just say the Canine Club? Sorry, the Canine Company. Pretend I didn't even say that. My bad. Sunday afternoon. But no, man, lots of love to you and to Kat, and keep up the good work and stay strong in these hard times, And if you need a brother to talk to, you got 2 right here.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I've been listening. I've been binging actually over the last week while I've been working. And you guys have put out some really, really good episodes. I really enjoyed the one with Scotty McGuinness.
Oh yeah.
That was excellent. But some of the ones where you guys are hanging out and talking, like, I've really enjoyed them.
It's funny actually when you mentioned before talking about focusing on like just having fun in terms of like trick training and stuff with your dog. That when you said that, it reminded me of when we were talking to Scotty, and he was talking about how they teach people to just like hang out and just like train your dog while you're just having a beer kind of thing. And it's like, keep it, I guess it's that like KISS principle, keep it simple. Like the program that you can adhere to is the sort of less than perfect one that you will actually do is better than the perfect one that you never do. Do you know what I mean? Like, so bring it down to a level where people can actually get amongst it and sink their teeth into it.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think that's one of the cool things that Scotty's actually brought to the industry. And I know you guys kind of spoke pretty in depth on that podcast with Scott, where you're talking about his trick stuff that he does, and the film editing and all that sort of stuff, like his social media work that he puts out it's very, very well done. It's really creative, and it's colorful, and it's bright. So I think that's one of the things with podcasts like this, getting the information out, it's starting to become really accessible. So there's no excuse for people to not be learning new stuff. And then, with the stuff that you guys are putting out, we have the opportunities to learn from you guys. And Luke, I'm interested to follow your journey over the next few months and that sort of thing, and see how you end up in the dog world, because it's a good place to be, man. Like, if a lot of people bag it, but if you
Fuck
use
'em.
it for good, the same with social media, use it for good, man.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's a freaking cool place.
It's funny, you know, talking about filming stuff. I've been filming everything that I'm doing with the Labrador. So not so much like I'm teaching him the complex skill, and that's really a game of millimeters. So I film some of that stuff, but the owner was telling me like she had an incident at the dog park. Surprise, surprise. That you know he actually, it was him. He tends to take off a bit, especially with male dogs. Sometimes he has a bit of a thing anyway. So he had no recall. So we've been teaching him a recall and just working on the long line and doing stuff like that. And I've got like a chest rig GoPro, so I don't even have to hold it or have anyone to do it for me. So
Awesome.
I've been filming some of that stuff, and so there's a bit of content there that I'll put out at some point.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Love to see it. That'd be great.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for your compliments too, bro. It means a lot.
Hey, I've enjoyed it. It's been really cool.
That's
Nice
good,
to sit down with you guys, man. I really appreciate the invite to come on. And
No, thank you for giving
thanks
up
for
your
having
summer
me on.
arvo. Appreciate it.
Maybe next time when you're allowed to leave your house, you can come over when you're in Sydney, or maybe when we're in Melbourne.
Yeah.
We can hang out in the flesh and have a drink in real life.
Mate, I'd love it. Sounds perfect to me.
Yeah, when
Likewise.
seminars and that are back on, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be good times.
Yeah.
Bring
Oh
it
yeah,
back.
for sure.
Mm.
Can't wait. It'll happen. We'll be back.
That's it, mate.
Definitely.
It's around the corner.
You stay strong, bro. And good chat, man. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
See you, bro.